In the heart of the Yoruba village of Ipitu, there was a bustling market filled with merchants selling fruits, vegetables, cloth, and various other goods. Amidst the vibrant market, there was a small but charming store that stood out from the rest. This was Adunni's beautiful wigs, owned by a young and enterprising woman named Adunni. Adunni was known for her extraordinary wigs, which seemed to have a magical allure. Women from all over Ipitu and neighboring villages flocked to her store, eager to buy her wigs. Adunni's wigs were unlike any others. They were so silky and shiny, and they seemed to enhance the beauty of anyone who wore them. Her store was always filled with customers, and her wigs never stayed on the shelf for long. Everyone in the village wondered how Adunni managed to get such wonderful wigs, but no one could figure out her secret. The truth was that Adunni had a secret that she guarded closely. Her wigs were not just ordinary wigs, they came from a place beyond the ordinary world. Every evening, after closing her store, Adunni would head to the riverbank, far from the prying eyes of the villagers. There, she would call upon the water spirits, beings from the mysterious marine kingdom. These spirits would emerge from the water, bringing with them the most exquisite wigs. These wigs were made from materials so fine that they shimmered like stars in the night sky. Adunni knew she was dealing with powerful forces, but she couldn't resist the allure of the magical wigs and the wealth they brought her. Despite her success, Adunni felt a constant unease. She knew that dealing with the marine kingdom was dangerous, but the desire for wealth and fame kept her going back to the river. She justified her actions by telling herself that she was providing a valuable service to the women of Ipitu, making them feel beautiful and confident. But deep down, she knew that she was playing with fire. Every night, after locking up her store and ensuring that no one was watching, Adunni would make her way to the riverbank. The path was familiar to her now, the trees and rocks along the way seemed like old friends, guiding her to her secret destination. She would wait until the village was quiet, with only the sounds of nocturnal animals breaking the silence. This was the time she felt safest, away from the prying eyes of the villagers. At the riverbank, Adunni would stand by the water's edge and chant an ancient incantation that had been passed down through her family. The water would ripple and glow, and slowly, the water spirits would emerge. These spirits were ethereal beings, with hair that flowed like liquid silver and eyes that shimmered like the moon. They would greet Adunni with whispers that sounded like the wind rustling through leaves. The spirits would bring out the wigs, each one more beautiful than the last. These wigs were not just beautiful, they were imbued with the magic of the marine kingdom. They had a life of their own, shimmering and changing colors in the moonlight. Adunni would take the wigs with a mix of awe and fear, knowing that she was dealing with powerful forces. The spirits warned her to be careful, but the lure of the wigs was too strong. Adunni would return to her store, her arms filled with the magical wigs. She would carefully place them on the shelves, ready for the next day's customers. Each wig seemed to radiate a glow of its own, drawing in anyone who looked at them. Adunni knew that her success came at a price, but she pushed the thought to the back of her mind. She was becoming more and more successful, and the wealth and admiration she received were hard to resist. But deep down, she knew that her secret would not remain hidden forever. As the days went by, Adunni's wigs became even more popular. Women from all over the region were talking about her store. It wasn't long before rumors started to spread. People began to wonder how Adunni managed to get such extraordinary wigs. Some said she had a secret supplier, while others believed she had a special talent for making wigs. Ayabo, one of Adunni's regular customers, couldn't stop talking about the wigs. "Have you seen the new wig I got from Adunni?" she asked her friends. "It's like nothing I've ever seen before. It's so soft and shiny, and it makes me feel so beautiful." Her friends nodded in agreement, each of them admiring their own wigs from Adunni's store. But not everyone was convinced. Sod, another villager, had her doubts. "It's strange, don't you think?" she said. "How does Adunni always have the best wigs? There's something not right about it." Her friends dismissed her concerns, but Sod couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Tond, a young man in the village, also began to grow curious. He had always admired Adunni from afar and couldn't help but wonder about her secret. He noticed how she would often close her store early and disappear for hours. He decided to find out what she was up to. One night, Tond followed Adunni to the riverbank. He hid behind a tree and watched as she chanted an incantation and the water spirits emerged. His eyes widened in amazement as he saw the spirits bring out the magical wigs. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Adunni was getting her wigs from the marine kingdom. Tond watched in awe as the water spirits handed the magical wigs to Adunni. He couldn't believe his eyes. The wigs shimmered and glowed, and he could see why they were so special. He realized that Adunni's secret was more incredible than he had ever imagined. But he also knew that dealing with the marine kingdom was dangerous. He had heard stories of people who had gotten involved with the spirits and had suffered terrible consequences. After watching for a while, Tond quietly slipped away and returned to the village. He couldn't wait to tell his friends what he had seen. "You won't believe what I saw," he said to his friends the next day. "Adunni gets her wigs from the marine kingdom. I saw it with my own eyes. The water spirits bring her the wigs every night." His friends listened in amazement, but some of them were skeptical. "Are you sure, Tond?" one of them asked. "That sounds like a wild story." But Tond was insistent. "I swear it's true. I saw it with my own eyes. Adunni chants an incantation, and the spirits come out of the water and give her the wigs." The news spread quickly through the village. Some people believed Tond's story, while others dismissed it as a fantasy. But everyone was talking about it. Adunni noticed the whispers and the curious looks she was getting from the villagers. She felt a growing sense of unease. She knew that her secret was at risk of being exposed. A few weeks later, the village of Iputu received a visitor. Pastor Olumide, a well-known pastor from a nearby town, came to Iputu to hold a revival meeting. He was known for his powerful prayers and his ability to cast out demons. The villagers were excited about his visit and hoped that he would bring blessings and healing to their community. When Pastor Olumide arrived, he was welcomed with open arms. The villagers told him about the various issues they were facing, and he listened with a compassionate heart. But soon, someone mentioned Tond's story about Adunni and the marine kingdom. "Pastor, we have a strange situation in our village," they said. "There's a young woman named Adunni who owns a wig store, and we believe she gets her wigs from the marine kingdom." Pastor Olumide was intrigued. He had encountered many strange things in his ministry, but this was something new. "Tell me more," he said. The villagers recounted Tond's story, and Pastor Olumide listened carefully. He decided that he needed to investigate for himself. Pastor Olumide decided to visit Adunni's store. He walked through the bustling market, taking in the sights and sounds of the village. When he reached Adunni's beautiful wigs, He was impressed by the variety and quality of the wigs on display. He introduced himself to Adunni and pretended to be interested in buying a wig. "These are beautiful wigs," he said. "How do you manage to get such high-quality wigs?" Adunni felt a pang of anxiety. She knew that Pastor Olumide was a powerful man of God, and she feared that he might discover her secret. She tried to remain calm and polite. "I have my ways," she said with a smile. "I work hard to ensure that my customers get the best." Pastor Olumide noticed how nervous Adunni seemed when he mentioned the Marine Kingdom. He decided to probe further. "I've heard some interesting stories about your wigs," he said. "Some people say they come from a magical place. Is there any truth to that?" Adunni's heart raced. She knew that she couldn't reveal her secret, but she also knew that lying to a man of God could have serious consequences. She chose her words carefully. "I work hard to find the best materials for my wigs," she said. "That's all there is to it." Pastor Olumide could sense that there was more to the story. He decided to keep an eye on her and pray for guidance. That night, he gathered the villagers for a prayer meeting. They prayed for wisdom and protection, asking God to reveal the truth about Adunni's wigs. The next morning, Pastor Olumide visited Tond. "Tell me more about what you saw at the river," he said. Tond recounted his experience in detail, describing how Adunni had called upon the water spirits and received the magical wigs. Pastor Olumide listened intently and knew that this was a matter that required urgent attention. Pastor Olumide decided to confront Adunni directly. He went to her store and asked to speak with her privately. "Adunni, I need to talk to you about something important," he said. "I've heard stories about your wigs, and I need to know the truth." Adunni felt a wave of fear wash over her. She knew that she couldn't keep her secret any longer. With a heavy heart, she decided to confess. "It's true," she said quietly. "I get my wigs from the Marine Kingdom. The water spirits bring them to me every night. I know it's wrong, but I couldn't resist the power and wealth they offered." Pastor Olumide listened with a mix of compassion and concern. "Adunni, dealing with the Marine Kingdom is dangerous," he said. "You have to stop. You're putting yourself and the entire village at risk. The spirits may seem benevolent now, but they will demand a price eventually." Adunni nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know," she whispered. "But I don't know how to stop. I'm afraid of what will happen if I refuse their gifts." Pastor Olumide placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We will help you," he said. "But you must be willing to let go of the wigs and turn away from the Marine Kingdom. We need to pray and ask for God's forgiveness and protection." That evening, Pastor Olumide called for a village meeting. The entire community gathered in the village square, curious about what was happening. Pastor Olumide stood before them and spoke with a firm but gentle voice. "Adunni has confessed that her wigs come from the Marine Kingdom," he announced. The villagers gasped in shock. "But we must not judge her. Instead, we must come together to pray for her and help her break free from the spirits." The villagers were initially stunned by the revelation, but Pastor Olumide's words inspired them to act with compassion. They agreed to hold a prayer vigil that night to support Adunni and seek divine intervention. As the sun set, the entire village gathered in the square, holding candles and singing hymns. Pastor Olumide led the prayers, calling upon God to break the hold of the marine spirits on Adunni. "We ask for your mercy and protection, Lord," he prayed. Release Adunni from the grip of these spirits and cleanse our village of any evil influence. The villagers joined in, their voices rising in a chorus of hope and faith. Adunni stood in the center of the circle, feeling a mix of fear and relief. She could feel the power of the prayers surrounding her, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. She prayed silently, asking for forgiveness and strength to resist the lure of the marine kingdom. As the prayers continued, a strong wind began to blow through the village. The candles flickered, and the air grew tense. Pastor Olumide sensed that they were on the verge of a spiritual breakthrough. "Keep praying," he urged the villagers. "We are in the midst of a spiritual battle. Do not lose faith." Suddenly, Adunni fell to her knees, clutching her head. She felt a tremendous force pulling at her, as if the spirits were trying to drag her back to the river. Pastor Olumide rushed to her side, praying fervently. "In the name of Jesus, we command these spirits to leave," he shouted. The villagers echoed his prayers, their voices united in a powerful cry for deliverance. Adunni felt a surge of energy coursing through her. She could feel the hold of the marine spirits weakening. With a final, desperate cry, she shouted, "I renounce you, spirits. I belong to God now." At that moment, the wind ceased, and a profound calm settled over the village. As the calm settled, Adunni felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The oppressive weight that had been bearing down on her lifted, and she knew that the marine spirits had lost their grip on her. Pastor Olumide helped her to her feet, his face filled with relief and joy. "You are free, Adunni," he said. "God has answered our prayers." The villagers cheered, their hearts filled with gratitude and hope. They had witnessed a miracle and knew that their faith had brought them through. Adunni thanked Pastor Olumide and the villagers, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Thank you for your prayers and support," she said. "I couldn't have done this without you." Pastor Olumide reminded them that their work was not yet done. "We must destroy all the wigs and cleanse Adunni's store," he said. "We need to make sure that no trace of the marine kingdom remains." The villagers agreed, ready to take the necessary steps to protect their community. The next morning, the villagers gathered at Adunni's store. They carefully removed all the wigs and brought them to the village square. A large fire was built, and one by one, the wigs were thrown into the flames. As the wigs burned, a strange, sweet-smelling smoke filled the air. The villagers watched in silence, knowing that they were witnessing the end of an era. Adunni stood by, watching the wigs burn. She felt a mix of sadness and relief. She had built her success on these wigs, but now she knew that she needed to start anew. Pastor Olumide stood beside her, offering words of comfort. "This is the beginning of a new chapter in your life," he said. "God has great plans for you." With the wigs destroyed, the next step was to cleanse Adunni's store. Pastor Olumide led the villagers in a prayer of purification, asking for God's protection over the space. They sprinkled holy water throughout the store and placed crosses at the entrances. As they prayed, they could feel a sense of peace and sanctity filling the space. Adunni felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that her store could be a place of positivity and goodness. She thanked the villagers for their help and promised to use her store for good from now on. "I want to make beautiful wigs, but this time, I'll do it the right way," she said. "I want to use my talents to bless others." Over the next few weeks, Adunni worked hard to transform her store. She sourced high-quality materials from local suppliers and learned new wig-making techniques. She enlisted the help of local women, teaching them how to create beautiful wigs. Her new store, Adunni's Honest Wigs, quickly gained a reputation for quality and integrity. The villagers were proud of Adunni's transformation. They supported her new business and were happy to see her thriving in a positive way. Adunni attended church regularly and became an active member of the community. She found joy in helping others and giving back to the village that had supported her. The experience with Adunni's wigs had a profound impact on the village. The villagers learned the importance of doing things the right way and the dangers of taking shortcuts. They realized that true success comes from hard work and integrity, not from dealing with dark forces. The village became more united, with a stronger sense of community and faith. Pastor Olumide continued to visit Ipitu, offering guidance and support. He was proud of the way the villagers had come together to help Adunni and was inspired by their faith and determination. He knew that the village had been through a challenging time, but they had emerged stronger and more united.